I'm going to hit some highlights here with some problems I'm most concerned about. One of those is 15b. You should put a big star beside it because this is one that will appear. This is solving inequalities that are rational expressions. And so the temptation is always to want to multiply through by the common denominator and get rid of the fractions. You can't do that in the case of an inequality because we don't know whether to switch the sign or not, because we don't know whether x is positive or negative. So instead, when you do these kinds, you always set it less than 0 or greater than 0. You make a common denominator. And then you do everybody's favorite, you test points. So in this case, I would subtract over the 8 over x so that I have it less than 0. Then before I can test points, it's ought to all be one fraction, so I'm going to make a common denominator of x and x plus 3, which means the first fraction needs to get multiplied by x, and the second fraction needs to get multiplied by x plus 3. And so if I do that and simplify it, I'll have 7x. Distribute the negative here, so negative 8x minus 24 is less than 0. If I add up my like terms, I have a negative x minus 24 over x times x plus 3. Now you're ready to test points, and you're testing points on the entire fraction. So I'm going to make my number line. The top's going to equal 0 at negative 24 when you solve that. The bottom is going to equal 0 at 0 and negative 3. So I have my numbers on my number line. Since they're all first power, I know it's going to alternate, so I can simply test a point. I can't test 0 in this case because it's on our number line. So I'm going to vote to test 1, which is that top section. If I test 1, I'm going to have a negative. Over the bottom will be a positive times a positive. Altogether, that makes a negative. So therefore, I know it's going to alternate the rest of the way down. The big question is, do you want the positive answers or the negative answers? That key is right here. It says you want this expression to be less than 0, so therefore you want the negative solutions. So I'm going to take these two negatives, but I have to decide on brackets or parentheses. Since this problem was a less than, and there's no equal sign to it, they would all be parentheses. If there was an equal sign, which I'm going to go ahead and add because that does make this trickier, if I put an equal sign on this baby, then I know that the numbers that came off the bottom still have to be parentheses because I can't have it equal 0. So the 0 and the negative 3 would still be parentheses, but because there's an equal sign, the number on top could be a bracket. So my solution would be the interval from negative 24 to negative 3, including negative 24 but not negative 3, unioned with the interval with a parenthesis 0 to infinity. One of those is fairly tricky, and I guarantee you there will be one on the final.